Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum dear students. I am Rasheeda Qasim, lecturer in English at Government Girls Degree College, LARKANO. The topic of my video lecture is Ode to Nightingale by John Keats, which I have taken from the syllabus of BSc final class. This comes in the poetry section. But before I start my lecture, I would say that Education and Literacy Department of Government Sindh deserves great appreciation for launching online program that is a platform to promote education in today's world arena. Ode to Nightingale by John Keats. Let's discuss about the author first. He was a major poet of Romantic age, born in 1795 and died in 1821. He was educated from Gay's Hospital, which is now a part of King's College, London. John Keats gave voice to the spirit of Romanticism in literature when he wrote, "I am certain of nothing but the holiness of the heart's affections and the truth of imagination." T.S. Eliot and P.B. Shelley were of his great admirers. John Keats witnessed deaths of his siblings at his early age, respectively of his mother, grandfather, grandmother, and brother. All this left a great trauma on his mind. Besides this, he also remained unsuccessful in his affair with Fanny Brawley. He was also infected with TB at his early age, and before his death, he requested to carve down on his tombstone a very famous line, which is, "Here lies the one whose name was written on water." What is an ode? An ode is a form of lyric poetry which expresses emotion of poet. Generally, it praises something. It's a kind of address to someone or something. John Keats is a prince among all English poets because of writing his odes. Ode on Grecian Urn and Ode to Nightingale are his best exemplary notes. Let's see what's the setting of the poem. The poem is set both inside and outside of a forest. It is also famous that he heard the song of Nightingale while sitting in the garden of his friend, who was Charles Browning, and he was moved in ecstasy to a level that he wanted to forget agony of his life, but each time he failed. So the setting was John Keats was sitting in the garden of his friend under a plum tree. Brief overview of the poem. Ode to Nightingale is basically a song first published in 1819, and this bird, nightingale, symbolizes the beauty of nature and art. This ode is an epitome of Keats' excellent poetic imagination, which highlights difference between life and literature. It also connects life and literature. Human beings die, but a piece of art like poetry contains such features which makes lives on. After reading this poem, one may feel that the poem is incomplete, or one may discover that poetic imagination is no solution to the problems of life. A person cannot completely escape from the reality, and this is a fact. No one can escape from the reality of life. This poem highlights a Troy of escapism from the miseries and a strong poetic imagination, by exhibiting relationship among life, art, nature, and literature. Analysis. My heart aches and drowsy numbness pens. My sense as though of hemlock I had drunk, or am tied, some dull opiate to the drains. 1 minute passed, and Lethe wards had sunk. It's not through envy of thy happy lot, but being too happy in thine happiness, that thou, light winged, dryad of the trees, in some melodious plot of beech in green and shadows numberless, sing'st of summer in full throated guest. Oh, for a drought of vintage that had been, cooled a long age in the deep delved earth, testing of flora and the country green, dance and provincial song, and sun-burnt mirth. Oh, for a beaker full of warm south, full of the true, the blushful hippocrene, with beaded bubbles winking at the brim, and purple stained mouth, that I might drink and leave the world unseen, and with thee fade away into the forest dim. In these expressions, John Keats experiences immense pleasure after listening Nightingale's beautiful song, while he is seemed in mood of melancholy, but happy due to the listening of Nightingale's song. He directs his intense feeling of mind by listening the song of Nightingale that he feels motionless. It looks as if he has taken a cup of hemlock, which made the poet content. There are figurative devices used by the poet like alliteration, beaded bubbles winking at the brim, and also allusion like Lethe words referring to the river in Greece, whose water erases the memory of its drinker. Another allusion like dryad of the trees, referring to the tree nymph, and blushful hippocrene, which refers to the fountain of muses. Warm south is also a kind of allusion which refers to red wine prepared in southern Europe. Poet also used a rich imagery like testing of flora, vintage, beech in green, in order to show that he may forget the sufferings of life and tries to disappear into the dark forest along with bird. He mentions the song of bird is like the song of fairies who travel from trees. The poet wishes to take more and more wine so that he may escape from the miseries of world. He wishes to take the fruits of nature, flowers with full fragrance, regional songs. All this he wants to forget the agony of his life. These lines appeal that poet wishes to go with nature by creating imaginative escape from the sorrows of life, because he is greatly involved into the mood of happiness brought by Nightingale bird. Moving ahead, dear students, fade far away, dissolve, and quite forget what thou among the leaves hast never known. The weariness, the fever, and the freight, here where men sit and hear each other groan, where palsy shakes a few, sad, lost grey hairs, where youth grows pale and spectre thin and dies, where but to think is to be full of sorrow and leaden-eyed despairs, where beauty cannot keep her lustrous eyes, or new love pine at them beyond tomorrow. Away, away, for I will fly to thee, not charioted by Bacchus and his parts, but on the viewless wings of poesy. Though the dull brain perplexes and retards, already with thee tender is the night, and haply the queen moon is on her throne, clustered around by all her starry face. But here there is no light. But here there is no light. In these expressions, pessimistic approach develops in the mind of poet as he compares the mortality and suffering of human being with the immortality and perfect happiness of nightingale. At this moment, John Keats experiences an escape from reality, going into the imaginative world of freedom along with Nightingale. He wants to go away with the bird. Here, Nightingale appears as an object of empathy. According to poet's point of view, in this world, people get troubled by the excitement of their desires because when their hopes and desires are not fulfilled, consequently, they grow anxiety and despair in them. Poet suggests nothing lasts forever, neither love nor youth, not beautiful time of couples or not a partnership. Everything gets absorbed. Therefore, poet is seemed pessimistic in his approach. But we also analyze poetic escape in his mind, which means he is filled with a spectrum of joy and melancholy. Poet used figurative device like personification in beauty cannot keep her lustrous eyes. Beauty is personified as having human traits of sight. Also in Wings of Poesy, as if art has wings of birds. This is such a wonderful imagination of John Keats, which moved him in a mood of delight. When he intends to fly away on the invisible wings of poetry, for a moment he becomes joyous due to his poetic thought. Another term is used figuratively, which is tender is the night, and another expression, Queen Moon on her throne. These expressions highlight an artistic approach of poet and beauty of nature, suggesting human qualities of tenderness and kingship to natural objects of night and moon. Such expressions spotlight the idea that poetic mind develops artistic imagination which comforts him mentally. Further, we see, save what from heaven is with the breezes blown through verdurous glooms and windy mosey ways. I cannot see what flowers are at my feet, nor what soft incense hangs upon the boughs, but in embalmed darkness, guess each sweet, wherewith seasonable month endows the grass, the thicket, and the fruit tree wild, white hawthorn and the pastoral eglantine, fast fading violets covered up in leaves, and mid May's eldest child, the coming musk rose, full of dewy wine, the murmurous haunt of files on summer eves. Above expression draws dilemma of poet. Poet seems to shift from beauty and glory of nature to the mood of deep pessimism. He could not see light on earth, but he found light and charm in natural objects. Poet was unable to see flowers and bushes under his feet. Just he could see or assume the types of flowers like violets, musk roses due to their seasonal fragrances. As he was sitting in the garden under a plum tree, so he could think of seasonal flowers, as it was the month of May, in which mostly honeybee comes to collect honey. Therefore, it's to say, poet has said in this ode a very rich imagery of nature. So the figuration in these above expressions are of the imagery. Let's have a look further. Darkling I listen, and for many a time I have been half in love with easeful death, called him soft names in many amused rhyme, to take into the air my quiet breath, now more than ever seems it rich to die, to seize upon the midnight with no pen, while thou art pouring forth thy soul abroad. In such an ecstasy, still wouldst thou sing, and I have ears in vain. for thy high requiem become a sword. Poet has personified easeful death by expressing highly artistic and richly sensuous emotions here. John Keats seems filled with great despair and sorrow of life, but he feels delighted and he is happy to die in the glory of nature. Poet desires to die by calling many a times death to come upon him. This moment reveals an aura of an artist who wishes to die in the beauty of nature while listening Nightingale's song. It means natural voice of Nightingale contains healing power for the agony of poet. That's why poet does not consider death painful in such natural environment. So under the charm of Nightingale's song, poet wishes to die and desires to be buried in the grave where he would mix with earth and with nature. Requiem becomes sword. This term shows negative capability by John Keats, which means poet developed a sense of realization about human limitations. Thus he wanted to die while enjoying Nightingale's song. He realized his sorrows and miseries of life because he is mortal. Now arises a question, what is called negative capability? Actually, 2 years before writing this ode to Nightingale, in 1817, John Keats coined the term negative capability, suggesting for the ability to accept the uncertainty and miseries of life without needing to resolve them. And here, this, dear students, you see the same phenomena appears in above expression, which highlights the negative capability of John Keats in this poem, where he accepts his reality with a different understanding of life. He loves death, but with the love of nature, and he returns from imagination to reality. John Keats is sure about the unhappiness with real world, and he returns from his poetic imagination to reality and agony of life. And this is what we call negative capability. Moving further, we see, thou was not born for death, immortal bird. No hungry generations tread thee down. The voice I hear this passing night was heard in ancient days by emperor and clown. Perhaps perhaps the self same song that found a path through the sad heart of Ruth when sick for home. She stood in tears amid the alien corn, the same that oft times hath charmed magic casements opening on the foam of perilous seas in fairy lands forlorn. Poet treats Nightingale as an immortal bird while man is mortal. In the above expressions, poet wants to leave a universal message of love and peace, that clown and kings alike heard the song of Nightingale since old days. Similarly, he feels joyous when he listens the bird's song. So Nightingale's song is for all the mankind irrespective of their social position and status. Poet used allusion of a beautiful girl named Ruth who was exiled from her home. She might have comforted alike the poet after listening the song of Nightingale. In short, the song of Nightingale appears as a source of delight and comfort for all the dejected and isolated people of the world. In the last expression, forlorn the very word is like a bell to toll, row back from thee to my soul self. Adieu, the fancy cannot cheat so well as she is femme to do, deceiving elf. Adieu, adieu, thy plaintive anthem fades past the near meadows, over the still stream, up the hillside, and now it's buried deep in the next valley glades. Was it a vision or a waking dream? Fled is that music's, do I wake or sleep? Fled is that music's, do I wake or sleep. Here in these expressions, poet uses simile in the very word is like a bell, to compare the song of bird with bell, which comforted the mind of poet and develops a sense of realization about human limitations. As the nightingale's voice passes away, the poet returns to his previous condition, in which life was filled with sorrows and sufferings. Still, poet desires to listen it, but the nightingale's song is heard over the river, and then above the hillside till it get buried in the next valley. Thus, poet assumes that bird's song created a type of illusion in his mind, which resulted to produce a dilemma. And poet is questioning. He is questioning whether he was dreaming or was in a state of awakening. It seems poem is incomplete because poet is left alone with his miseries and agony of life. For a time being, due to artistic approach, he found a state of relief with the song of nightingale. But as it vanishes, he also fails in his imaginative escapism. Feedback. Dear students, review your prior knowledge related to the poet or poem and note down what new is known to you now, and critically analyze the poem by summarizing it. Thank you.